Who am I? When I was little, every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger staring back at me. And he was very, very angry. What could I do with all this anger? Hot, vibrating electricity with no place to ground it. If he couldn't release his rage, maybe I could help him hide it. I never felt comfortable in my own skin, so I made a new one. And when I slipped it on, he and I became one. His anger became mine, as did his thirst for justice. So, who am I? If I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be wearing a fucking mask.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Watching Watchmen. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jimbob. And together,
we are one drink in. Oh man, nailed it. I'll tell you where we didn't nail it, Jimmy.
We didn't nail it in the audio for this week's episode of the podcast. That's where.
So we're kind of new at this podcasting thing. This is the first podcast we've done. I got a new mic and
it's the first podcast you've done.
Jimmy's a veteran podcaster. You might remember him from such podcasts as
I was not prepared to do a Troy McClure, but next time I will be.
So forgive us. Please don't divorce us.
Next episode, we'll have much better audio. We promise.
So we watched the episode at least one more time. I think I'm like 3.5.
I've only seen it once.
You were watching Watchmen, right? Talking about the same show?
I thought this was about Westworld.
No, that's going to be like 2020. We'll get to that.
Shit.
Watching Watchmen. What was the episode title?
The episode title was Martial Feats of Comanche Horsemanship.
Boy, that is a mouthful.
You're a mouthful.
And that, as we all know, is a reference to the painting that we see in the episode.
Yeah, so funny little bit, though, about that is that two of the words in the title of the show are actually swapped compared to the painting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the painting is actually called Comanche Feats of Horsemanship or of Martial Horsemanship. I've seen it both ways. But, so the show swapped those two words for some reason. Everything's just a little different in this world.
There you go. It's like a recurring theme throughout this show.
It certainly is, Joe.
Interesting. So we start off with a flashback to World War I time, and we got that type room with all those ladies clacking away at their typewriters.
As they do.
We kind of already talked about the scene, so anything you want to elaborate on that?
Not really. I would say that the name Mueller or however you say it does come up a lot in Watchmen, sort of like the name Williams. You know, we keep seeing a bunch of names coming up over and over and over. So I feel like that's trying to tell us something kind of important. I don't know.
Right. And I don't know if I don't think we talked about this on the podcast much, but HBO has released some supplemental material on PDpedia. It's a fake website that HBO has put out.
Yeah, we meant to talk about that a little bit last week, but just didn't get around to it because, we do whatever we want on this show.
Basically, it's Agent Petey. He's an FBI agent, and these are some of his documents.
Yeah, specifically, he works on the Masked Vigilante Task Force. So he's all about dealing with superheroes and enforcing, I don't know, whatever FBI nonsense that they do with superheroes.
But anyway, the reason I mention it, we're going to reference that going forward. And also Mueller is mentioned in that document as well.
It is.
It is indeed.
It all comes around.
So we hear the letter that Will Reeves is carrying around in his pocket. We see kind of the origin of that. And we start with his father reading it. And then we cut to a young Will Reeves reading it.
You think one of these days we'll have an episode of all the letters flashbacks, and we'll truly understand?
I think we saw the flashback.
I guess that's true. Maybe if we string all those old scenes together chronologically, it might make a cool bonus episode about the letter.
Once the series concludes, someone's going to do a deep cut of a chronological I think they did that with Lost, right?
Yeah.
Where they basically took every scene and organized it in chronological order.
Yeah, they made the worst version of Lost.
Really takes a lot of the fun out of it.
And also, it is kind of incomprehensible because, like, some of the first things you see are like the Losties traveling like way back in time, and you have no idea why.
Right. Yeah. So, but we do. I think this is the furthest in the timeline that we've seen thus far. In the first episode, we saw the Black Wall Street.
It depends when we see Jeremy Irons.
That's a fair point. We don't know when that's taking place.
That could be.
It is
any time.
It isn't. It's true. It's kind of. Well, it's too complicated.
Is it too complicated?
We have no idea. We don't know enough about where or when he takes place. So we'll just keep that. That's the Flash sideways. But as far as within the world, this is the earliest we've seen. This is before the Black Wall Street massacre. So we see Will's father's alive, and we see the origin of the letter. That's pretty cool. But I liked how we start out hearing his father reading the letter, and then you cut to a young Will reading the letter.
Tries on his dad's uniform.
And then you hear the present day Will reading the letter.
Ooh, it's a nice touch.
Pretty cool. And then you got to think, so Will, his parents died when he was, what was he, 5? Something like 7?
If the math would say, I think 7.
So he grew up mostly without parents, but he had this letter. The letter was essentially the only thing tying him to his parents. So he carried that around with him almost 100 years. He's had this letter. What do you think that would do to somebody where that's essentially all you have left of your parents' memory, and you just read that letter over and over? It's a German propaganda letter. or some sort of a vigilante that wears a hood and seeks justice. Captain Carnage.
Well, it is kind of interesting when you see that scene and you hear the words of the letter, like, and you imagine OB, Will's father, reading it as his white superior officer literally spits in his face. It's like, you know what? Why not go to the Germans? Like, we know better now that, Germany turned out to be a little rough around the edges a few years after this.
Did they do something wrong? What happened after World War One?
There was a sequel. Didn't go well.
They were the bad guys.
The sequel's always worse.
Great scene. I like the shot of the German officer. You get to see him through that looking glass, and he's upside down.
He's
appears to be inverted.
Not a looking glass necessarily, a magnifying glass. He's flipped upside down. Kind of shows how, like, a lot of things are just kind of flipped upside down, not what you'd expect.
Right. A little inversion of what we're used to.
So, like, something that I thought of is, so the letter is German, is of German origin. It's about, Will is reading this letter about joining the Germans, right? Adrian Veidt is also German.
He is.
I don't know. Like, you think there might be a connection there? Like this is like foreshadowing a way that Will sort of aligns himself with a German.
It's highly possible. Yeah. Adrian Veidt is definitely of German heritage.
Maybe that's his friend in high places. I don't know.
That's highly possible. Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about before we move on to the next scene? Next, we cut to the bakery. We've got basically we get to see Angela taking the older Will Reeves to her bake cave.
The bake cave.
And one really interesting thing is she gets him a nice hot cup of coffee, and he proceeds to just down it as if it's not scalding hot. You can actually see the smoke emitting from the hot beverage.
To wait for that at all, yeah. Or be bothered by it.
And then we focus in on Angela's reaction to it, and she looks pretty shocked.
Dude's tough.
Dude likes his coffee like he likes his women. Hot. Scalding.
Very hot. Painfully hot.
And then she reaches into his pocket, pulls out the letter and his pills. And she asks what the pills are for. And he says that they're for his memory. And it's
probably echinacea.
And it's been a long time since he's been home.
Yeah.
What did you make of that comment?
I mean, he could have been anywhere, even Vietnam.
So So quite literally, he was from Greenwood, and now he's back in Greenwood. So you could take the literal translation to what he's saying, and then just he's been away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Or, bear with me, I'm going to go into some pretty crazy territory. You ready for this?
Take me.
What does he say shortly after it's been a while since he's been home? He says that he's Dr. Manhattan.
That's true.
Is it possible, Jimmy?
So it's been a while since Dr. M's been home.
Well, not only that, but is it? I mean, we're dealing with a guy who claims to be 105 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's not that impressive.
It might, maybe not. I don't know a whole lot of 105-year-olds.
Well, I don't hang out with old people.
That's true. They smell.
Sir.
Someday you're going to be old, Jimmy. You should probably be nice to you.
If I'm lucky.
Maybe. How old is Mr. Burns?
I don't think it's ever really confirmed.
I think he's the old. What was his social security number?
It's
one.
I think there was a reference in one episode sometime that put him like over 140.
Oh Jesus.
I don't remember exactly what that was, but I remember thinking like if he's I don't know if it's been this many years since such and such, and he was still an old man then, like he'd be like over 140 years old or something.
So
could be.
Okay, but what I'm getting at is it's possible that the Will Reeves, if his name is, I got a whole nother theory too. Is his name really even Will Reeves?
Why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be? So who is his idol in that
Bass Reeves?
Bass Reeves.
Well, we don't know his last name. It hasn't been revealed
we don't know.
In the show yet.
We don't know yet. But it is possible that he's just assumed that last name as an alias, and he was inspired by his hero as a child, Bass Reeves.
They do apparently have some record of him as a Will, though, because
this is true.
When she checks his DNA, and that's a whole weird scene we can talk about too, is the DNA thing, because I don't know, do they have everybody's DNA on file or something in this alternate timeline? Because like that wouldn't just work, like you have to have a sample to test it against,
Yeah. I don't know.
You have to know his DNA to be able to say whether or not this thing is his DNA. So
this is true.
I would assume they either have it on file or already, or I don't know. That's about all I got. They must have it on file already.
Possible. So anyway, I'm getting back to my original deviation from our
tangent.
Yes. So he says it's been a while since he's been home. And then he claims to be Dr. Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at is it's possible that we're witnessing someone who no longer is alive in the sense that you and I are alive. This could be someone who's deceased, and Dr. Manhattan has assembled particles.
Smoke monstered him,
if you will. And he's home. It's been a while since he's been home. Imagine that this hooded justice, as we kind of suspect he might be.
Well, he does also claim not to be Dr. Manhattan.
He does. He's very...
I think the question that raises, though, is why would Dr. Manhattan come back?
It's a great question. But we witness him drink that hot coffee, so that's a little unusual. Mm-hmm. And then later on in the episode, we see him reach into the boiling water to pull out an egg. So we're establishing that he doesn't feel pain or he's immune to damage. I don't know. But when he said it's been a long time since I've been home, I got to thinking maybe we shouldn't take this literally. Maybe he hasn't been in this world. Maybe he's back.
Could be.
And because he seems to have some supernatural.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on.
Yeah.
He also seems to be aware of like things right before they happen. Like he knows about Angela's phone calls
right
before she tells him.
Who else would have that ability?
Another interesting little tidbit. Dr.
Manhattan.
Okay.
So,
but another thing I thought was kind of cool is that when he's cooking the eggs at the end, and you see that egg timer, which is sort of like a reverse doomsday clock, right? Because it's like it's kind of going backwards, counting down to something.
Okay.
Which I thought was a neat image, like since we're reversing everything. But that the instant that goes off, that timer goes off, the phone rings, and that's when Angela.
I noticed that as
it's
well.
like he set his He's like, you're going to get a phone call, and like
almost as if he can see the future, and the past, all at the same time.
So, another possibility, we do know that in this universe there are people who have psychic powers, because Ozymandias cloned a psychic's brain to create the squid monster. So
that's canon.
That's in the comic book, yeah.
Right.
So it's possible that Will Reeves has powers without being Dr. Manhattan, that he just has a different set of powers. And I think it's possible that Angela, his granddaughter, has inherited some of these powers too.
They have the Shining.
They shine. He's Dick Halloran from The Shining.
So that was my kind of cuckoo theory. We'll see how that plays out. The other question I had is, why is Angela keeping Will a secret? Why is she hiding him in her bait cave? Why is she not telling her detective buddies what she knows? She's keeping it a little bit of a secret.
The detective buddies probably just aren't going to believe it. They'd probably just write it off as bullshit right away. Like, he called her for a reason. He wanted her to see this. He wanted to tell her stuff. If she tells them, they either lock him up and we kind of never see him again, or he gets rescued, like he said he would, or and they're still going to go to Nixonville. That they believe it was the cavalry. They're just not going to buy it, and they're not even going to listen.
Sure,
they probably would prevent Angela from listening or investigating. Will's a pretty cool guy. Seems funny. Seems like
I'd hang out with him.
Funny grandfatherly type.
Kind of reminds me of an old Yoda.
Yoda, when he starts to lose it a little bit,
kind of playful. We all think he's entertaining, but Angela is not amused at all.
No. Except he doesn't like cursing. I don't think I could hang out with him if he doesn't like cursing.
Why the fuck not?
Well, exactly.
Exactly. Next we he says there's a vast and insidious conspiracy, which is also a quote basically verbatim from the original comics.
Which part of the comic is
Rorschach tells Dan about a vast and insidious conspiracy.
Vast and insidious conspiracy.
So it's very interesting. We cut to a newspaper stand. We kind of talked about that already. A
little bit, yeah. How it harkens back to the newspaper stand from the old comic book.
Exactly. And we see squid fall in 4 cities. What were those 4 cities, Jimmy?
He mentions Tulsa, which is where he lives.
I know where Tulsa is.
Vancouver.
I've heard of that.
Which is in Canada.
Jakarta, yep.
And Leningrad.
Whoa, Leningrad.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that on my map as a youth in geography. Where's Leningrad?
So coy. Leningrad is now called, what is it, St. Petersburg in Russia? It was like the capital of the Soviet Union. Well, so yeah, like it kind of, it makes sense though, right? Because the Cold War ended under very different circumstances in this world than it did in ours. So.
What do you mean? We didn't have a giant blue god?
Yeah, there's no Reagan to say tear down this wall or any of that stuff. So yeah, I guess the Soviet Union is still a thing in Watchmenville. Watchmen 2.
I wonder if that's where we plucked Red Scare.
Nah. I guess, are the U.S., you think the U.S. and the USSR are like allies now? Like we're all buddies?
I would think
and so Red Scare chose his identity based on this like shared history they have, almost like a joke. Like, you remember when people were afraid of communists? Like,
yeah, no, I think it's highly possible. I think that's what it is indicating is we're in a different timeline. The Cold War ended, and so who knows? Maybe we're all chummy. What else happens? We get a younger woman stops by and picks up a big stack of basically every newspaper that the stand has to offer except Nova Express.
Which she plans on getting the next day or whatever. It doesn't come till later.
But she's obviously a regular. They know her. And he asks if she really reads them all. So who is this she that he's referring to? Do we know? Well,
I haven't looked at anything outside of the actual show and the comic book itself, so I have no idea.
No clue.
None.
We know that there's a character, Lady True,
something like that. Yeah.
We haven't met her yet, but if you've seen any kind of the promos or trailers, you've seen her.
She's currently in charge of all Feats Enterprises, right?
Apparently, she's some sort of a mysterious trillionaire who has assumed control of Veidt Industries, whatever Veidt Industry.
All his holdings.
All of his holdings.
He had multiple companies.
Did you guys hear me? Trillionaire.
Pyramid Transnational.
Trillionaire with a T. That's a lot of money.
How many monies is that?
I think it's about $1 trillion monies. I didn't do so good in math. I don't know. So we don't know. We haven't met her yet, but she's going to be a recurring character in the series. But I have a theory about her without even knowing anything about her. You guys ready to go into spoiler territory?
Geez.
By the way, there's spoilers galore in this show. If you're a first time listener,
It's a podcast.
why are you jumping into episode 4, whatever this is? You start at the beginning and then you can catch up. Everybody else knows that we're just chock full of spoilers. That's going to be the name of our next podcast.
Chock full of spoilers?
You like that better than spoiler
We'll
sound?
only discuss shows that have like already come out, and we'll tell the ending first.
How about the spoils of TV?
There you go.
Ooh,
We started the last episode and work our way forward.
totally.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's the worst idea for.
We'll do it for Watchmen after the season's over. We'll start it. We'll do a second podcast all about the spoilers. We'll tell you who Dr. Manhattan is disguised as. We'll tell you what's going on with Ozymandias in his weird world.
We just spoil everything in the
tomato
first
trees.
5 minutes of the podcast, and then you don't have to listen to the rest because the rest is just boring details. We give you all the meat right up front. So anyway, Lady True, she's running Vite Industries. So I'm going to go off on another tangent here.
Oh boy.
Dr. Manhattan, I think, is involved.
No.
If you recall, at the end of the comics, Manhattan says that he's going to go off and create life.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that he has created life and then sent them back to Earth to assume control of Vite Industries and essentially kind of run things? You've got a very powerful trillionaire who may or may not be. She kind of looks a little different, like alien-esque. No, that's terrible, Jim.
You said it.
Don't you put those words in my mouth?
I thought she just looks Asian.
No. She dresses kind of futury,
Like,
but no one else dresses particularly futury.
well, nobody else is wealth as a trillionaire.
It's true. I don't. Maybe when you're a trillionaire, you just have to.
Yeah, how
dress a
much did her
certain
clothes
way.
cost?
Anyway, that theory is based on very, very little information.
It's based on nothing.
but it's entertaining. We're
I
having
don't know.
fun.
I don't like it because I keep hearing like all these theories about Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan's doing this, Dr. Manhattan that. And I'm like, it doesn't seem consistent with the way everything ended in the comic books for him to really be doing much of anything. I think we're getting kind of bait and switched here with the whole Dr. Manhattan thing.
I mean, that is definitely possible. But imagine that the doomsday clock is once again ticking,
Why
and
would
that
he care?
there's a vast and insidious conspiracy that threatens not only Earth but perhaps the universe.
An other galaxy where he said he was going to go to create life.
Look, I don't know everything. I don't claim to. I just know that she's obviously an alien created by Dr. Manhattan. That is my crackpot theory. We'll see how it plays out after we actually meet Lady Trio.
Oh, turns out we have a ton of other crackpot theories, and none of them line up with that one.
So she picks up the magazines, leaves, drives off in a very odd-looking vehicle.
It's a cool-looking vehicle.
It's cool-looking, but somewhat alien, wouldn't you say?
I think it's an Acura.
It's not. It's actually some type of a Jeep. I saw an article on Jalopnik,
Oh.
and it's some type of rare Jeep. I forget the name of it now, but retails for about $150,000.
Well, that's not
It's a
very
lot
much for
unless you're a trillionaire, in which case she probably has one in every color. But that's what she rides around in.
And it is white.
That's true.
It's like a white horse.
What is... Oh, yeah. it
Yeah.
is.
I mean, that's just a
White-
recurring image, white vehicle, white horse, white
But that tends
good
to...
guy, bad guy,
white
reversals.
seems to be the bad guy.
white is something.
And Vite Industries has not usually been associated with
The good
pure and
guys.
goodness.
Yeah, this is true.
So there's a lot of mystique surrounding this.
Mhm.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
I agree. I think in the preview, she said something about having a plan to save the world or something, which is also, she might be the Adrian Veidt sort of stand-in in this show.
Yeah.
Like he has his role to play too, but there's also like a character that parallels her or him, and I think she might be that. So I guess we'll see. We shall see.
So we hear them kind of debating the newspaper stand gentleman. I think that's the official term, newspaper stand gentleman.
Yes.
He's discussing the squid fall. He says the squid fall is a false flag. Redford using it as a distraction, while the Libstapo take away our rights.
Yeah, so like it is kind of funny how almost dead on he is with like what's in Rorschach's journal.
Right.
Even though I doubt is a a friend of the 7th Cavalry, but we don't know. Like I still like to cling to the idea that the 7th Cavalry isn't really a white supremacist group, that's just like their dressing, that they wear the trappings of white supremacists to throw people off their scent.
Do you think they're aliens created by Dr. Manhattan too?
No, but maybe.
So yeah, it's interesting. So Peteypedia, I think that they go into detail about what happened with the Rorschach journal after the events of the comic book.
Yeah, so it was it was released on the New Frontiersman in like chapters first, and then like later there's a collected edition that came out, and the editor said stuff about it, wrote an article, and yeah.
So it's been the Rorschach's journal, which basically states that the squid attack was not a natural occurrence, that it was in fact a plan by Ozymandias to...
Would you call it a vast and insidious conspiracy?
I would use those exact words. Yes, it is a vast and insidious conspiracy. And now we've got another vast and insidious conspiracy.
What if
brewing.
It's just part of the same one?
Part 2?
Yeah, like it's the same conspiracy continuing.
I mean, that's kind of...
Because people still believe in the squid. They still think that's... legit.
It does still rain squid, so there are lingering effects of the first vast insidious conspiracy. It wouldn't be vast if it didn't span, 30 years. It
wouldn't be insidious if it wasn't a squid. I don't know.
Yeah, no, squids are very insidious, if you ask me. But I think we talked about that scene. So we hear about the multiple towns, but we also see a headline that scientists are baffled. So 30 years later, they're still baffled. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's wacky. An extra dimensional thing. This is all just like, there is no scientific theory that would explain all that.
Do you think it's just a slow news day and they're just talking about things that happened 30 years ago and they just don't, they're still talking about the squid attacks? Yeah, I know it happens.
I mean,
does this need to be a headline? I don't know. Fake news. Quite possibly. Anything else we want to talk about with that scene?
I want to know which name these two characters share.
Shoot, I don't remember now, but it did say when I was watching it with subtitles.
Is it going to be? So is it going to be?
I want to say it was Seymour.
Is it going to be the old guy and the younger dude, or is it going to be the old guy and the little girl? Like they're going to have the same name.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Like she's the parallel for Bernie, the comic book reader in the book.
Her name's going to be an alien name like Zoltus or
maybe
Zoltan.
his will too.
You think they're both named Zoltan?
That
would be...
It is 2019.
You never know. So, next scene. Angela arrives back at the tree where Judd was hanged.
Yeah. And so, our Rorschach stand-in, Looking Glass, hops into her car and starts eating all her food.
Asks if she's got any food.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this implies that Looking Glass is just... He doesn't have enough money for food? Why is he eating her nuts?
Well, it was an early morning. He probably skipped breakfast.
Yeah.
Somebody found it. This was like really early in the morning, just after sunrise, because she took Will to the bake cave.
Yeah.
And then got the call and then head straight back to the tree. So she's been up all night. Looking Glass has probably been up or just got up, So he might not have had time to grab breakfast.
What do you think a day in the life of Looking Glass is like?
Probably pretty boring.
A lot of microwave dinners.
He watches TV. Appears to live by himself.
Never takes the mask off.
It's true. It's interesting. Like, so, harping on that whole Looking Glass being the opposite of Rorschach situation. Like, even his mask, like, it's reflective, and it still like shows changing patterns based on what's around him. Rorschach's mask is expressive. So like Looking Glass is hiding like who he is and what he feels and all that, and just showing the world. Rorschach's mask changes with how he feels. Like it expresses what he says, even though it still hides his identity. And I just thought that was another cool thing that I thought of.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we
see those moth dudes.
The moth dudes are great. Apparently we don't have drones in this world because electronics are far behind. That's another whole PDpedia file.
Yeah, so it's not that all electronics are far behind. It's that there was like paranoia around electronics, or certain types of them. Apparently, there have been lots of different theories, I guess, as to what allowed the squid to come through. Some people think it was Dr. Manhattan. Some people think it was like the internet. We have the internet here in our world, and we haven't seen any squids, so I think we can rule that one out. But it's kind of a funny that article you're mentioning, how he's like trying to talk the cops into using it.
Technology.
Yeah,
again.
like it's not really gonna like steal your soul or anything. It's just a computer, a thinking machine.
Yeah, it sounds like Dr. Manhattan made his appearance. When was that? It was like in the 70s? 69?
It must have been in the 60s.
60s. So he's been around for a while, but he helped shape, I think, modern technology.
59.
59.
Yeah, Gila Flats 59.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot if it was 59 or 69.
Yep.
But he was basically around before most technology and certainly the internet. So I think he helped kind of develop some technologies. And then once they started, Adrian Veidt spread the rumor that Dr. Manhattan was causing cancer. They got fearful of technology and Dr. Manhattan, but they pretty much went into the dark ages. Computers, I think, were starting to become a thing. And then once Dr. Manhattan was considered carcinogenic, they banned all computers for fear of more squid attacks.
I also like how the PDpedia website is like really simple.
Yeah,
and it's just like direct links to files.
It's nice.
It's not. Well, it's like an old website, like something who wasn't used to working with computers or designing websites. Like, 'cause that's not a thing in this world. That's how they would make it. Like, I'll just have a list of the files here, and that's just all.
Bullet points, very concise. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's funny because, first off, like the PDpedia, the supplemental documents that kind of add to the world building. That is not that's not unusual to Watchmen. They had that in the original comic run. They would have little supplemental documents here and there where they would kind of develop the world with different.
Right. I read the comic book, so I would know.
You mentioned it a few times.
There's a clip from Hollis Mason's autobiography.
I also read the graphic novel, guys.
There's an article from the Nova Express. There's all kinds of stuff in there that adds tons to the world building and the story. So.
And then Damon Lindelof, we might have mentioned he worked on Lost. Lost had a very elaborate, and
very confusing
in world. Like they'd have all these fake websites that would talk about the Hanso Foundation, which is kind of added to the story. It wasn't essential to the story, but it would kind of shed some light. But it was spread across multiple websites and all over the place. So I kind of appreciate that PDpedia is one website with just 3 articles.
It's not an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, you get all the information that you need right there. I spent a lot of hours
on a website that looks like it was designed in the 80s.
So, where were we?
We're at Looking Glass talking to what's her face, Sister Knight.
Yes, eating her nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And he's interrogating her. He's kind of asking some questions. So
why would he interrogate her?
There's a lot of distrust here.
Yeah.
Angela doesn't seem to trust hardly anybody, and Looking Glass doesn't seem to trust her. It's not a very healthy police force that we're witnessing here.
I don't know. I think Red Scare's having a good time.
Totally. He seems very well adjusted. Someone had pointed out how funny it would be that if Red Scare wasn't actually from Russia, if he grew up in Greenwood.
During some episode, he's going to like drop the accent and be like, I'm not actually Russian. I'm not a communist either.
I love that. I hope that happens. We see the moth people flying around, and Red Scare's beating the shit out of them. And then Red Scare threatens to tear down their idol, Nixon, if they don't all come and get into the paddy wagons and volunteer to be arrested.
Seems like
a reasonable request. I don't see how this could possibly go wrong.
This just seems like a crazy example of police just going nuts, So they can just round up everybody in this whole branch of town
really makes you question whether the police are who we're supposed to be rooting for. This seems pretty terrifying.
Now you're questioning that?
I've been questioning, but especially this. That the police can just show up and forcibly put you in a paddy wagon or beat the shit out of you, and there's really...
Like, you can't blame the Nixonville people for kind of standing up for themselves, you know?
Exactly.
Like,
they didn't really do anything wrong. We also don't think... So one of the things that Looking Glass says is that the obvious conclusion is that the 7th Cavalry is behind Judd's murder. But I think that that's kind of to indicate that that's probably not what happened. I don't think that's what happened. Do you think that's what happened?
Well, I'm not sure. I think that it was a 105-year-old man in a wheelchair.
Did you know that he can lift 200 pounds?
I doubt that, too.
Have you heard this theory that he might be Dr. Manhattan?
You know what? I have heard that theory. I've processed it. I'm still processing it.
So yeah, the police force, it's pretty terrifying. We're living in a pretty strange and scary world.
Yes, we are. The show's pretty intense, too.
I also thought it was kind of funny that, so Judd Crawford is a white man, and most of the residents of Nixonville are white, and yet Red Scare calls him racist. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of also harkens back to the point that, like, the cops definitely think that the 7th Cavalry is racist. The audience is supposed to think that they're racist. I'm not convinced that they're racist. I think that's going to be a twist.
I think you're right.
They're not actually white supremacists at all. That's why people like Judd and Panda might be working for them.
I don't trust that Panda as far as I could throw him.
Well, I can't. He looks like a big dude,
so
I don't think you can throw him at all.
So that's how much I trust him. When they're about to tear down the Nixon statue, they put this almost a noose around his neck, which I thought was interesting.
That imagery coming back.
We had just seen the noose with Judd Crawford.
Do you think Nixon might have been Hooded Justice?
Oh my God. I think you're right. I mean, what else could it possibly? I think that's all we needed.
Nixon, the true identity of Hooded Justice was Richard Nixon.
And Nixon is currently 105 years old.
What? And
a black man. What? Did we just figure out that Louis Gossett Jr. is Nixon?
Oh, my God.
You heard it here first, folks.
It all fits.
So then we see Angela. Red Scare is beating down some of these Nixonville residents and asks if Angela wants to get in on that.
Yeah, Angela's got to feel pretty mixed up right now because she's like, she knows that it wasn't these guys.
She's one of the only ones. She's the only one that doesn't think it's these residents of Nixonville because she knows more than she's letting on.
So that's got to be kind of crazy.
So really, shame on Angela. She could have prevented all of this if she just shared her information.
You see how gung-ho Red Scare was about this?
But if you hand Red Scare an old man in a wheelchair who's basically confessing to the crime,
he'd probably still
beat
go
the shit out of that old man.
Well, or he'd just forget the old man and still go beat up Nixonville people.
That's probably true. He just wants an excuse. Did that scene in Nixonville remind you of anybody else where someone throws something at the comedian and he just starts beating the shit out of everybody?
He fires like tear gas into the crowd who's protesting because that's when the police are on strike in the comic. So the police go on strike, so there are no police, and instead it's just superheroes. So again, it's kind of a reversal, right? It's like an inversion. And so this time, instead of people protesting, it's people just trying to live, and the police are coming and fucking up their shit.
We get that awesome scene where Night Owl asks, "What happened to the American dream?" And the comedian says, "You're looking at it. It came true."
Yeah.
So good. Then we anything else we want to talk about with that scene?
Right before that, we did skip one. Angela has her little flashback to the White Knight, and I feel like there's a lot to dissect from that bit. You know?
Oh, we did, yeah.
So like. We start out with Angela and Cal dancing right before midnight, having set the presents out under the tree, presumably.
Sure.
Well, I guess they didn't have kids at the time, so never mind. They set the presents out for themselves, having a couple's Christmas.
Couple's Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, they got a big house just for the two of them, come to think of it.
I want to talk about that, too. Finish your thought, and then we'll go back to...
So, there's kind of a lot to bring out of that. She mentions that she's like trying to train Cal to like surprises.
Yeah.
Like that tells us he doesn't like surprises as it is. And I think, I feel like she's hinting that she's pregnant. I I don't know. It's just a feeling I get from that scene, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't have any hard evidence, but they do kind of do a shot of like their hands crossed over her belly.
Yeah.
And then like, I think something that present might be like, I don't know, a kid's car seat or some stupid thing that people do to announce that they're preggers.
Well, I also have suspected that there was either her maybe being pregnant or maybe they were going to try to have kids. I'm not sure. But I think her getting shot in the stomach is no coincidence. I think that's...
No. Yeah, I think she got shot right in the baby.
Right in the baby. Ooh. What else happened in that scene? We get then we get the 7th Cavalry breaking in. Mm-hmm. And...
So another thing I noticed, like, so... We are another repeating thing is how clocks happen, strike like right when violence happens. Like the countdown is always towards something violent. Like that clock strikes midnight, like the moment Angela gets shot. Like that gun goes off, and then you hear the grandfather clock in the other room, which has just been shot itself. So that clock's really a trooper.
Right,
still chiming on time.
They don't make them like they used to.
No, sir.
That reminds me of somebody's son who made watches. There was a watchmaker's son.
Nah,
You think
you're
he made
thinking of
that
something
clock?
else.
Yeah, it's probably a whole different series. It's a watch.
He quit back in World War II anyway when the bombs fell.
That's true. We haven't
Yeah,
seen
so
him
he
since.
probably isn't even very good at making watches.
So we see these. The 7th Cavalry has this coordinated attack where at midnight they struck the houses of 40 different police officers. So in Angela's house, we get 2 different assailants. Mm-hmm. One of them, she manages to stab in the neck and kill, but then she gets shot by the second intruder. And
so two assailants in to kill one cop, and the only other person in the house like disappears.
We don't know where Cal went.
Yeah, that's
but
kind of
the last
crazy.
thing we hear her say is Cal.
She's calling for him, but he's just gone.
And then fade to her in the hospital.
You think
waking
Cal
up.
was the second shooter?
No. It was obviously Dr. Manhattan.
It was obviously a white dude.
No, I don't. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting that Cal disappeared, but I don't know what his motivation would be.
He's a coward.
To shoot Angela. He wanted out of the relationship and he didn't know how to tell her. The present was a bomb.
He was taking the opportunity to open that present. It's like, my wife's been shot, sweet. I got some time.
He just really wanted to open the gift.
I just want to see what's in that
she
box.
Wouldn't let him. Oh my God. That's the worst.
It's midnight. Motive. It's Christmas. I'm opening it.
That's probably it. I think we figured it out. So back to the PDpedia, we find out that there were 3...
We need like a sound effect or a musical cue for when we bring in PDpedia. So
what would you recommend?
I don't know. Like of the more you know. Like, hey, this interlude brought to you by PDpedia.
We'll do that. Yeah.
All right. We'll do it in post.
We'll do it in post, or just right now. That's terrible. We're not doing it. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do. Yeah, I don't know what we would do. The Lost whoosh, something like that. There you go. The trumpets. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a better idea. So PDpedia mentions that there were 3 survivors of the White Night. Now, Jimmy, how many do we count? We know Angela,
Cal.
Well, I don't think they're counting Cal.
I don't think.
I think it's just because then
he was just
you'd
talking
have to
about
count.
cops, I think,
you'd have to count Judd's wife.
Yeah,
as well.
That's true.
So we know Judd, Crawford, and Angela, but who is the 3rd survivor?
My guess would be Looking Glass.
Yeah, maybe.
Or Panda.
I mean, who knows? Because what about Red Scare? We don't really know enough about.
It's true.
Who was on the force at that time?
Right.
But PDpedia made note of saying that there were 3 survivors, and we've only seen 2 that we know. There have been 2 confirmed thus far.
That's a good point. Pirate Jenny.
You know what? It's probably just a typo. I think PDpedia just had it wrong. Nothing worth investigating.
Possible. Is that even
case
canon?
Closed? Anything else about that scene that we want to discuss before we move on?
I don't know. Do you think there's any credibility to the idea that the other shooter might have been Judd himself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we definitely should have brought that up. The fact that we transition from the shooter looming over Angela to Judd looming over Angela, I don't think that that's an accident. So that's awfully suspect. And we know that Judd had some skeletons in the closet.
He had something in his closet.
Something in his closet.
I also thought it was interesting, and I'm not sure I understand the significance, but like how at this moment Judd and Angela switch to being on a first name basis. It's like he's visiting her in the hospital and she calls him Captain.
Yep. And he says Judd.
Yeah.
And he calls her
Detective.
Detective Abar, and
Yeah.
she says Angela.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like that happens later too. When else does that happen? Now I just forgot. Oh, actually, it's Joe Keene.
He calls her.
She calls him Senator Keene, and he says just Joe.
Ooh.
Another sort of first name basis kind of thing. And then he mentions that Jane has to call him Senator because she works for him, but she corrects him to used to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that whole thing just means that I'm pretty sure Joe has both Jane, is aware of Angela and has Jane doing superhero shit on the side. And he's just really bad at keeping secrets.
Are we're going to move over to that scene, or are we still talking about...
We can. We don't have to go...
jump around?
We don't have to go...
Who needs chronology?
I mean, just because it's the order Damon Lindelof went doesn't mean we have to.
So the White Knight, I think we covered that pretty well. Then...
There's, Judd does mention, like... And you pointed this out during the show, when he says that somebody's... I bring it up because it's a repeating line, a repeating motif, you know? Like, he says that someone's looking out for her, and he looks up.
Oh,
like,
yes.
As if she's got friends in high places. So, like, that keeps coming back, you know? There's something about somebody helping people from above, somebody orchestrating things.
So, as we learn later in the episode, Will Reeves is apparently Angela's grandfather. So I did see some theory.
Spoilers.
Did we mention spoilers are involved here? I think we might have gone over that exhaustively.
I just use it as a punchline.
Spoilers.
When you say something.
Should we have some sort of an audio cue when there's a spoiler?
Ooh, we could come up with something.
So
hey, mention in the comments something you think we could stick in here as a spoiler alert.
What sound effect would you like to hear when we talk about spoilers?
We'd wind up having to play it over the whole episode, though.
And if you don't suggest anything, then Jimmy and I are just going to come up with what we think is best. Maybe the Krusty the Clown laugh. Can we do that?
You want me to do it?
I mean, or we can get...
Yeah, let's get a clip of Krusty.
Dan Castellana.
Or let's do the sound of a dying giraffe.
Oh, Jesus. We're getting off topic here. So we are cutting to the Greenwood Center. Oh, no, I don't think I've finished my thought, you son of a bitch.
We'll finish it. This is the place to do it.
So you mentioned the friends in high places again. Someone up above is looking over you. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that her grandfather is looking out for her?
No.
End of that story. If Will Reeves is indeed hooded justice and has friends in high places, it's entirely possible that he's been keeping a close eye on Angela and intervened to save her. But here's what I think. I think that Judd is the likely suspect. We already know that he's kind of a dirty cop.
He's got a Klansman artifact in his closet.
Right. And I think that he let Angela live as a means of kind of keeping her under his thumb.
Interesting.
You know, he's basically saying that, yeah, he's survived too. And he said that all the other police quit. And Angela says that she's not quitting. And he said, well, I guess I'm not quitting either. So I feel like she's being manipulated in the most horrific way. I do. I think that Judd has manipulated her into trusting him. And
Judd's certainly got secrets, but like... They're friends, you know? Like, they go to each other's houses for dinner. Yeah.
She doesn't know he had Klan robes in his closet, so I don't know.
But that, as Will says at the end,
consider you a friend, Jimmy. But if you had some robes in your closet, I would be a little suspect. I'd question whether I really know you.
But do you know what is in my closet?
When I find it, am I going to hear a wow grand reveal?
It's possible.
Okay, I think we're done with that scene. Next scene was the Greenwood Center for Cultural Heritage.
Yeah, so they have a museum about the Tulsa massacre, the
Black Wall Street
massacre.
Yes, and you got Henry Louis Gates Jr. as was it Secretary of State?
The Treasury.
Treasury. And he's apparently in charge of handing out red-fordations, seeing if you're eligible.
Yeah, well, at least he's kind of the face of it on these little kiosks.
Which so she goes up to the kiosk and he refers to her as Angela, which tells me that
does he?
He calls her Angela because it's like the screen is talking to you.
I thought
or Will. Maybe he calls her Will.
Yeah, she says her name is Will.
Sorry, not Angela. But the point is he was able to tailor his response to her name.
Yeah.
So does that mean that Henry Louis Gates Jr. recorded every possible combination of names in the
universe of Watchmen? Yes.
It's quite a few names.
In our world, no. He only needed to say Will.
Oh gosh. No, I just thought that was funny. I'm imagining him in a recording room. He's like, how many more names do we have?
So funny story about Henry Louis Gates Jr., or not actually funny at all, but very, very pertinent to the show, is that in 2009, he was apparently returning from a trip and had trouble. He lost his keys or something, had trouble getting into his house. So his driver, and he tried to start like kicking in his own door, and one of his neighbors called the police. And so as a result of this altercation, he wound up getting arrested for trying to break into his own house. Like
Hilarious.
Basically arrested for being black.
That's terrible. Yeah.
And so it was kind of a big thing. Like Obama wound up inviting both him and the police officer to the White House to like have a beer. And like, it kind of became this big thing about, racial sensitivity with policing and things like that, which nowadays we're all too familiar here in 2019.
I love how Damon Lindelof takes real life people that we know and puts them in the Watchmen universe.
You know Henry Louis Gates Jr.?
We hang out all the time. I just had lunch with him yesterday.
Oh, what's he like?
He called me Will.
Oh, that's weird.
So I think he only called people Will.
Did you call him Skip? Apparently it's his real life nickname.
Yeah, right. So then we anything else of note? So we did. Based on the sample that she provides, she's got the mug from Will Reeves.
Yeah.
We find out that she's related to him, and she is, in fact, eligible for Redfordations.
Yeah, so you know what else is interesting about that I thought? So Angela doesn't know who her grandfather is.
Right.
Like, she's from Vietnam, basically.
Yep.
She was born in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't necessarily know that she's eligible for Redfordations. I don't think she's even applied for them. I don't think she's receiving that benefit that everyone accuses her of
Exactly.
having.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Because, she's been...
And the truth is, that makes it, like, all the more racist that everybody's, like, successful.
Just assumes.
Yeah. She's a successful black woman who has a bakery and a big house. She's got to be getting that Redfordation money, you know?
Right.
So, like, it kind of... I feel like if she's not even receiving it, it kind of sheds a new light on people's attitudes.
No, I think that's... Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, because we find out she's eligible. I thought she already was receiving it. So.
Right.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Another detail I noticed in that scene, and since I watched the episode only once, it really only took me once to notice it.
Very perceptive.
Is that in the background you see like this leopard print robe? You remember seeing this? There's like an old document or a piece of paper in a case, and then in another case there's a leopard print robe like on a mannequin.
I missed that.
Okay, so there is.
Very perceptive.
Yeah. In the first episode, like during the actual massacre, we see like some fat white dude like walking out of a building.
I remember that.
Wearing that leopard print
Interesting.
robe. Yeah.
Did you do any research on that?
No, I just thought it's a cool visual thing that they're, visual callback.
It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look out for that on my fourth viewing. And then we cut to Angela coming home, and she's got
another accusation of Redfordations.
Redfordations. You got this gentleman who's shaking her down for some money.
Yeah, so who you think this is like one of Topher's relatives, or?
I mean, he's got visitation rights, so I don't know who else it could be. I would assume it's maybe a stepfather or something
all the
like
kids that she adopted, were they all from the same family, you think?
I think so, because they mentioned that her partner died.
Yeah, Doyle, I think is
Christopher Topher took the younger girls into the closet. So that was 3 children.
Oh, that makes sense.
And
yeah.
she's got 3 children.
Yeah, so we have a theme of him like watching out for his sisters because he mentions he tells Angela that not to tell them about Judd, that he'll take care of it. Yeah, which is interesting to me.
It is.
Topher shows a lot of unusual maturity.
Yeah,
but maybe that happens when your parents are shot down or gunned down.
He could be Batman.
I mean, he's in the running to become a Batman.
A Batman.
You just have to do something about that hair.
Before we get to Topher, she pays off the guy on the porch that, for whatever reason, has visitation rights. Mm-hmm. He seems kind of like a scumbag. Didn't seem like he was interested in actually seeing the children. He just wanted to get paid. She goes in the house, and we see that her husband is playing with the children, and they're dressed up in costumes. Mm-hmm. What were those costumes?
So he was dressed as a ghost wearing a white sheet with the eye holes cut out. That probably isn't going to allude to anything in later in the episode.
Not, no.
And then
next costume.
The one girl was dressed as a pirate, and the other one as an owl.
So the owl, obviously, night owl reference.
Yeah, so like
nod to that.
Probably, yeah. Night owl is existed in culture, and so people are into owls because of that. And we also know that pirates are a big thing in Watchmen because superhero comics, just were kind of boring when you actually have
real life superheroes. Yeah. That's kind of established in the source material. Pirates are kind of like in our world where we have comics about superheroes. Pirates are the big thing.
Awesome.
I mean, they're fine.
Pirates are pretty sweet, dude.
If you like parrots and peg legs.
Well, not every pirate has those two things.
Getting scurvy? Ugh. I'd take a superhero any day. Leap a tall building in a single bound.
Get done in by kryptonite.
Not if I'm more powerful than a locomotive.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Superman?
I have.
He's done in by just a rock. A glowing rock.
How many...
He goes to a rave and he's done.
How much kryptonite have you seen in your lifetime? 0.
Well, I haven't seen any Superman either.
Well, I'm keeping it under wraps. So the costumes were probably significant. I would think that was on purpose. I think it's just probably coincidence.
I think Damon Lindelof probably just went to Johnny Brock's and was like, let's pick up.
What are the 3 most popular costumes for Halloween? I'll take them. So the husband asks if that guy's still on the porch. Angela says that he left.
So it's like another example of, is Cal a coward or like what's going on? Like
what is
the guy calls him a chicken shit. And he actually didn't do anything about the dude on the porch. He just played with his kids.
I
don't know. I feel like that's another thing that's kind of being repeatedly reinforced, Maybe Cal is an alter ego. That is to say, a mild-mannered, cowardly, stay-at-home dad by day.
Interesting.
But by night, he is a sex-crazed vigilante.
Seeking handjobs?
And then some.
At midnight? Quite possibly. We'll put that... I think my theory about Dr. Manhattan is probably more likely, but, we'll
maybe
see.
If he has sex before midnight, that's what triggers his powers to activate.
That's what it is?
Yeah. He transforms into... bitten by a raven.
No. We're getting way off topic.
That's fine.
So then, what did he say? He said, and then Cal asks about the old Will and asks if she arrested him. And she said no. And because he didn't do it. And he says, well, he said he did it. And she says that she doesn't believe him.
Well, it's probably a reasonable response.
I mean, maybe. I still wonder why she's keeping this a secret. She tells Cal, but she doesn't tell anybody on the police force.
She actually has no real workable evidence that Will has committed a crime. Not that stopped her from arresting people
except
in the
that
past.
He said it numerous times.
That's not...
You're not listening.
He's 105 years old.
I'm the man who strung up your chief of police.
Yeah, but if you feel like he couldn't possibly have done it, and you're not going to be able to convince any of your coworkers that he did it, it'd be a waste of time to bring him in,
I guess. Just get their feedback. Bounce the ideas off somebody else.
Yeah, because Looking Glass is great for bouncing ideas off.
He's a riot.
They bounce completely off his reflective mass.
But then, okay, so she brushes it off. He claims he did it, but he also claims to be Dr. Manhattan. And then Cal is like, yeah, that's obviously not true. He couldn't possibly take a human form. Why is it that everybody is so damn certain that Dr. Manhattan can't turn into a human?
It's a great question.
We got Will Reeves. I think if that is his real name.
The director, the writers are trying to tell us that the people in this world might, now bear with me, they might be wrong.
Nonsense.
I know.
I don't believe it.
I know.
But I love that Will says that Dr. Manhattan can grow to 100 stories tall. He can change the color of his skin. He can manipulate matter. Why can't he take the form of a human?
He can even be two places at once. He could be multiple humans.
I mean, why would they mention that if that wasn't irrelevant?
He could be most of the people in the world.
Anybody that we're seeing could very well be Dr. Manhattan.
Angela might be the only real person.
Possibly. Or
this whole world is just filled with Manhattans, and they're all trying to tell Angela one thing, but she hasn't been listening closely enough.
Then Cal says that he called Jane, Judd's wife, Judd's widow. Oof. Sorry, Judd.
Ouch, too soon.
Too soon. And he said that she sounded completely fine. Mm-hmm. What's that about?
That is odd. So
we'll get to that. There's more to that. We'll get to that when we get to the scene with her. So then Angela goes up to Topher's room to tell Topher the bad news. Uncle Judd. So
there's a lot of interesting details in Topher's room, I noticed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Aside from the Manhattan blocks he's playing with, which is super cute.
So cool.
His whole room, like, if we're, like, talk about, like, the color theme that's going on here, like, he has a poster on his wall that has, like, these colored spots on it, but everything else in the room is like gray. Like there's almost no color anywhere except for like the Manhattan blocks, which is blue. Yeah. He does have a poster though that I noticed of The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali. The painting with the melting clocks.
Oh yeah,
melting clocks. I feel like
something about this Topher.
They're definitely like they're telling us if clocks are such a huge theme in this show, melting clocks certainly takes on a meaning, All
right, hold on. I'm coming up with something.
Uh-oh.
All right, so his name's Christopher, but he goes by Topher.
Right, like the kid from that 70s show. He's not a kid anymore, but,
Which, Topher Grace.
Yes.
Christopher Christ, who's full of grace. Did we just stumble upon the greatest superhero of all time? More powerful than Dr. Manhattan? Able to come back from the dead, Jimmy.
The power to forgive sins.
Yeah, that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. He's going to be one of the Watchmen. No, it's horrible. So, Topher's room, you were talking about Salvador Dali.
Yeah. So, I basically said it, though. The clocks are melting. Yeah. Ozymandias also throws a clock in the oven. And it still works. So, like, there's imagery with destroying clocks. The grandfather clock gets shot.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, maybe they're telling us time is disrupted. Maybe that's the whole thing with Ozymandias and where he is that he's, like
that a lot.
In an atemporal sort of space.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I like it. I did notice whenever we cut to Ozymandias' or the Lord of the Manor, the music, the soundtrack tends to slow down quite a bit. Otherwise, Angela's got this very
Angela's got a very high tempo,
badass soundtrack.
Synthy.
You go into Ozymandias' world, and it's very slow and drawn out. So yeah, I think time flows much differently wherever he's existing. We also, when Angela's talking to Topher, she tells him that we don't do rainbows and lollipops. We know that the world is black and white.
Yeah.
He lost his parents, and she says that she lost her parents. So are we to believe that Angela's parents were also murdered?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I guess we need more details, but
yeah, we don't know. We know she grew up in Vietnam around the time of the war. It's highly possible that she was an orphan.
She said she remembers her parents, though, right?
I don't know. She just said that her parents died.
I think she told Topher that she remembers her parents and he remembers his.
Yeah. I know that they kind of bonded over the fact that both of their parents were killed. So I thought that was an interesting
totally.
piece of information. What else about this scene? I think in Topher's room, you also see, it looks like a dry erase board. There seems to be an owl man drawn on there.
And it's really blurry.
Very blurry, out of focus, but it seems to be an owl.
It's obscured by Angela for most of the scene.
Yeah.
Like, not till she leaves that we see the owl.
Yeah.
If that means something. It could. It could just be me reading into it too much.
Topher is Night Owl 3. By day, he's an orphan boy who's been adopted by Angela. By night, he's the Night Owl.
Could be.
3.
Hey, how about his reaction to the news about Judd?
Yeah. I mean, it looked like he was a little sad, but then he quickly puts on a tough face and says, yeah, cops die.
He's got some... You might want to talk to somebody.
Oh, my gosh. So, yeah, this brings me to my greatest theory of all. Are you ready for this?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
So she's telling Topher that Judd is dead. And he kind of has a...
She should have sang him that song.
She should have. That's how I would have told.
Just be like, Topher, I have something to tell you. I brought the cast in from Black Oklahoma.
Maestro, if you please. So he's not too emotionally upset about Judd dying. He says cops die, right? And after that, he smashes the Manhattan blocks. Mm-hmm. And we already talked about how that looks just like the castle that Ozzy's living in, and also the one.
Yeah. Sorry.
What's
Internet.
that about? That's a whole thing.
We know you noticed it. We noticed it too.
So he smashes that, and then the first thing he asks is, "Can I watch TV?" Mm-hmm. And she says yes. Mm-hmm. So in episode 1, if you remember, she tells him no TV.
Yeah, he was grounded from TV.
Is it possible that Topher orchestrated a massacre of Judd in order so he could watch television?
Oh, that makes so much sense.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let that be a lesson to you. Don't ever tell your children they can't watch TV.
He's working with Will Reeves.
I do think...
If a 105-year-old man could do it, a child could do it too.
I think that Topher is behind this vast and insidious conspiracy, and his motives are that he wants to watch television. Who else watched multiple television screens at the same time?
Ozymandias.
All right, everybody. I think I was just really tickled about that one. Write us in the comments whether you agree that Topher is a sadistic sociopath who just wants to watch television.
So speaking of American Hero Story, that's quite a scene.
Yeah. This shouldn't be watched by anyone, basically. Kind of reminds me of the disclaimer at the beginning of South Park.
Yeah, exactly.
American Hero Story. So we see that it's the television event of the century.
Yeah, and so apparently, and this is according to PDpedia, this is season 2.
Season 2
of American Hero Story. The season 1 was Rorschach.
Yes, interesting.
And this one is about the Minutemen. So yeah, that is super interesting.
Do you think the 7th Cavalry are bummed that season 2 is not about Rorschach? They thought that this would be more Rorschach.
That's what their real motivation is.
That's why they tuned in, and they're building the bomb vest because they're upset. So yes, season 1 was all about Rorschach, which had apparently some cultural repercussions. I think that caused a lot of problems.
Maybe they saw that and they're like, "Oh, we should totally do Rorschach masks. Right. That way people will know that we're not racist."
Fun fact, Rorschach was the most popular Halloween costume that year. Everybody was Rorschach.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are Rorschach this year.
Oh my God, Rorschach and Looking Glass, yeah. Red Scare. I kind of want to be Red Scare.
I have seen some Looking Glasses on the internet.
I've also seen that.
They look pretty cool. Yeah, I'd be curious as to see where to get one of those shiny masks because I've seen some cool ones.
We posted an article to our Twitter about what all went into Looking Glass's mask, and I think there were 5 different masks. Only one of them was an actual gray mask. The other ones were like green. Mm-hmm. You know, they did a lot of CGI to achieve that awesome reflection. I know. I was really hoping that I could just buy a nice. It's pretty reflective. Good though. Looks amazing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, anybody who wants to do a DIY Looking Glass costume mask, check out our Twitter and invest in a lot of CGI and green screen technology.
Yeah, you might want to hire Industrial Light and Magic.
You probably just want Mysterio from Spider-Man. He seemed like he knew how to really create some special effects. Where were we? American Hero Story.
Yeah.
So we see that everybody who's anybody is watching. Mm-hmm. I assume Topher's tuning in.
Yeah, he's watching with his dad, even though he was told not to by the FCC.
You got the 7th Cavalry building a bomb vest while watching the show.
That's probably not
as they do.
not going to play into anything.
I think that's probably the last we've seen of that bomb vest. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Then we see the Rolf Mueller body missing his left shoe. Did you notice that?
I did, yeah. Similar to a certain other body missing a left shoe and wearing a noose.
Yes. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Definitely some parallels being drawn.
So Judd was hung from a tree and the shoe was taken. This Rolf Mueller was shot in the head, but also had a noose around his neck and had the shoe taken.
Well, because it's part of his costume that he wears a noose as Hooded Justice, yeah.
But I'm wondering if, because Hooded Justice, as the narrator of this show, is basically admitting that he killed this Rolf Mueller.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it his MO to steal left shoes? And that's his signature?
Not that we know.
Well, we've seen it with this Rolf Mueller, and we also saw it with Judd, and he's claiming credit for killing Judd.
True.
It's almost like his calling card is to take your left shoe.
I think it's more a visual parallel than an intentional calling card.
Perhaps.
So one thing I noticed that was kind of interesting. So as the start of this little scene begins with
the flashback.
Yeah, well,
you talk about the
not
newspaper?
The flashback,
okay.
but the robbers raiding the store.
Yeah.
Like there's a kid going extra like about the hoax, the War of the Worlds hoax.
Right.
And one of the robbers like knocks a newspaper out of the kid's hand, like as if to say that like the evidence is screaming that the squid is a hoax,
right.
But everybody's just knocking it away. Like, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, the newspaper headline: "Alien Invasion, Just a Radio Hoax."
Mm-hmm.
That's a reference to the War of the Worlds. That was broadcast in 1938.
Yeah.
Narrated by Orson Welles.
Yeah, very famous. Yeah.
And it was an adaptation of H.G. Wells's novel, War of the Worlds, written in 1898.
That's awesome.
I love that H.G. Wells and Orson Welles. Uh-huh. How great is that? But yeah, so the headline, "Alien Invasion, Just a Radio Hoax," obvious reference to the fact that the big squid
invasion
is a hoax.
Yeah.
I love that. And then you see the New York Gazette newspaper van, whatever that, like some kind of a vehicle dropping off news. And I went ahead and Googled New York Gazette. It seems like it was a real publication, but it was in the 1700s.
Huh.
So I don't know what that's about. I couldn't find any evidence that it existed in 1938 where this is supposedly taking place.
That is interesting. Well, this is, a different world. Different.
It is.
Different situations.
So maybe that's just another thing where similar but different.
Yeah, divergent paths and whatnot.
So then we've got that scene. We kind of talked about how it's, I think, a nod to Zack Snyder's Watchmen movie with the hyper violence
and the slow mo to fast mo.
But in the scene, we've got the robbers going in there for watches and
wallets and watches,
as they do. And
Pulp
you
Fiction
got the guy behind the counter, and then you've got another employee there
holding lettuce.
Did you catch the lettuce?
I did, because I was like, okay, he's just standing there holding a head of lettuce.
Where else have we seen lettuce?
I usually see it in a salad.
Anywhere else? More specifically to the show we're watching.
Were they eating lettuce at Angela's place?
They might have been. I don't recall. Was it a wedge salad? I believe it was romaine.
I think. Were there any croutons? No. Yeah. So it's definitely a callback to. So the 7th Cavalry man threw lettuce into the police car, and he was hauling lettuce.
Supposedly lettuce. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Are they trying to tell us the lettuce means something?
This is 2 episodes where lettuce was very prominently...
It's not the only plant that kind of comes up, too.
Lettuce.
Right? Like,
by the way...
Tomatoes come up.
Anytime that I have a suspicion that we're going to see lettuce again, and every time we see it, I'm going to do that sound. Lettuce. So, get ready for that, guys. Buckle up.
So maybe, Ozymandias has a tomato from a tree. The 7th Cavalry has lettuce. Are we going to be shown all the ingredients to a salad that we should then try and make here on the show and tell you guys if it's good?
It would be interesting to learn that this entire series is really just a recipe for a salad. Damon Lindelof is making a cooking book.
I guess, how do we know what to rule out then? Because I don't think we want to put Lux detergent in our salad.
No, certainly not. That would probably taste a little bitter, although it would clean the palate.
Wah.
Anything else we want to talk about with that scene? It was a pretty cool scene.
It was cool. It was over the top.
Over the top.
It was kind of hilarious because, like, I don't know. I think I heard somewhere that, like, Zack Snyder and Damon Lindelof, like, know each other, like they're friends or something.
Lindelof was like a consultant on Snyder's Watchmen movie. Lindelof is known as being a huge fan of Watchmen, so it sounds like Hollywood is basically he's kind of the Watchmen guy. Yeah,
like let's call
reason,
Damon. He's the Watchmen.
Alan
guy.
Moore wouldn't do it. He wouldn't return the phone calls. So Damon Lindelof showed up.
But yeah, so I kind of like this idea that they're like poking fun at each other a little bit. He's making a scene in the show that's like, your movie was silly and here's why.
But I think it's all in good fun. I don't think he has any bad feelings towards Zack Snyder.
Who knows? Maybe they had a falling out. Maybe he saw Justice League and was just like, yeah, no.
Why were both their parents named Martha?
Do you think Damon has seen the Snyder Cut?
I think only Damon and Aquaman have seen the Snyder Cut.
Aquaman.
Jason Momoa.
Oh, has he seen it? Or
yeah.
Did he say something about it?
There's been some controversy. Like he posts stuff on Twitter that he's not supposed to. I think recently he did some sort of an Instagram post that he had to delete. But yeah, I think we're getting close to the Snyder Cut, everybody. Stay tuned.
Twitter's going to go crazy.
Oh, my God. Anything else about that? Just, yeah, Hooded Justice.
Hooded Justice in that scene when he pops out and, like, comes through the window and stands up. I think he pretty intentionally looks like a sort of a reverse Klansman.
Mm.
He's got, like, the purplish, dark-colored hood. Yeah. It comes up to a point at one point, with the cutout eye holes.
Oh, sure.
It's like,
yeah.
He's sort of supposed to be a mirror Klansman. Like, the show's got a lot of mirror stuff going on.
The Black Klansman, who's the good one. Not like those white Klansmen. Yahoos. So then I think we're good with that scene. I'm very excited to see more of this American hero story. So Hooded Justice is the main focus, I think, because he kind of was the first masked vigilante. But we're going to see more, I think,
maybe
the rest of the
episode we'll do, the rest of the Minutemen.
I think we'll see more.
I'm excited to see the Comedians episode. I don't know what to say about him.
All of them. Then we get the really cool transition. The little storekeep asks, "Who are you?" Mm-hmm. And then we get Hooded Justice.
Those intense eyes looking through the hood like he looks furious.
And then we cut to him describing who he is while we see Angela driving up to Judd's home.
It is a really nice scene transition.
And it's great because he's talking about how ever since he was younger, he remembers having this anger inside of him and he didn't really know how to deal with it.
He's the Hulk.
And it sounds an awful lot like Angela has a lot of anger that she doesn't know how to deal with. And perhaps many other masked vigilantes.
I think you have to be kind of pissed off in general to be a superhero.
Yeah.
That might be a requirement.
Yeah, you don't see a whole lot of well-adjusted superheroes. That makes for a very poor origin story. Are there any? You gotta have some sort of
in Marvel movies there
serious trauma. Yeah.
For the most part, I think
Spider-Man had drama, Captain America.
Captain America's pretty well adjusted.
He's okay. But yeah, he's been through some stuff. He's living in the past.
Yeah.
Get with the times, Cap. So yeah, we get the voiceover as Angela drives up. He describes how he's kind of got two sides, almost like a dark passenger, right? Angry and not sure how to deal with it. And I think that applies a lot to Angela. And it's really cool. She's driving up. You see those lights. What is that about?
Man, like Judge, that's not the only light too. Like his whole house looked like it was glowing, like from behind it. So many lights around that house.
Lots of light.
House on top of a hill. First of all, it's gigantic, so he makes a crap ton of money.
He makes bank.
Yeah.
But Angela's doing pretty well for herself, and we kind of talked about how maybe she doesn't have red predations.
Right.
So why is Looking Glass seemingly living,
Well,
he doesn't have a whole lot going on. His house was not very impressive.
These might be choices, like we don't know a whole lot.
He's got a lot invested in the bank. And
or maybe he makes poor choices with his money. The point is...
A whole lot of beans.
We also haven't seen a whole lot of Looking Glass and his real situation.
Not a lot.
We really just caught a glimpse of it.
Maybe that was, we don't... I just thought it was interesting that the Chief and Angela seem to be living in these huge houses, and Looking Glass's house was nothing... spectacular.
Yeah.
So she drives up to the house, and Jane, Judd's wife, we find out that she used to work for Joe Keane.
Who's there? He's up
Who's
late.
there.
Yep.
And Joe Keane seems to know that Angela is a cop.
Yeah. But she does she plays it well. She's just like, oh no, I retired, like I don't do that anymore.
I'm just a baker now.
Right, I wasn't supposed to say that. Damn it, Joe.
Do you have any sugar? And she said no.
Some bakery.
Some bakery. And then Angela fakes fainting, and we cut to her up in the bed.
Well, we do have that little thing I mentioned earlier about how he says Jane works for him, but she says she used to work for you. Joe, you keep messing it up. I used to work for you. I don't wink still work for you. So
there's also in the PDpedia files, you find out that Judd and Joe Keane have some history too. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So apparently they what was it? He worked as security detail for Joe Keane and worked with his dad, the elder Keane, when or he met what was it? He met Joe when he was working for his dad's security detail, something like that. He's working security, so there's connections here, political connections being made with the anti-superhero legislator and these possible vigilante people.
And we find out that Judd is actually fourth generation police officer. Mm-hmm. And that I think either his father or his grandfather has a twin.
Yeah. His father has a twin. So
I
he has
believe
an uncle.
That may come into play here.
Nah.
No. Just a...
And it does kind of shoot a hole in the theory that Judd may be Dan Dryberg, relocated. I don't know.
You come up with the worst theories, Jimmy.
I really like that one, but I don't think when you switch, when you're in witness protection or whatever, they give you a whole ancestry too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I'm pretty sure that we squashed the Judd is night owl.
All right, for now.
So yeah, Joe Keane. I'm sure he's going to be a very prominent character in the season. Owl. I saw some theory. I don't know what evidence they had to back it up, but some people are suspecting that he's Night Owl 3.
I bet he's some kind of Batman type dude, and Jane is his oracle. She's on the computer, telling him stuff, in his earpiece,
So that would imply that Joe Keane is working as a quote unquote good vigilante, but
I think they all think they're good.
Yeah. You think Joe and Judd were on the same side?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
That would imply that either Judd had a secret or Joe is in on the secret. Do you think Joe is in on the secret?
Probably.
I think so, too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust Joe.
I'm wondering if Jane isn't really the mastermind of the 7th Cavalry and we're being misdirected with Joe. So if you think about it, too, so the title of the episode... Martial Feats of Comanche Horsemanship is also a painting we see in Judd's house. Mm-hmm. This dude, their decor is all about horses.
Lots of horses.
They have those 2 chess pieces, White King and Queen, on that shelf. And so the martial feat that's so fascinating, or that's so interesting when you read about the painting, is how the Comanche would hang off the side of their horses with all their weapons and everything, and they'd be able to shield themselves with the body of their horse. So, I'm thinking to myself, so it's they sacrificed their horse to cover themselves. Okay, who do we have sacrificing somebody, throwing someone else in a line of fire, so to speak, to cover themselves? What if it's Jane? What if Judd is kind of her proverbial white horse, being a white hat cowboy type dude?
Totally.
And his death is her kind of shielding herself or misdirecting, protecting herself from suspicion or something.
Yeah.
Because she's heading this vast and
insidious
conspiracy.
There is a vast, insidious conspiracy going on, that's for sure.
What kind of conspiracy is it?
Vast and insidious.
It's insidious, like the movie?
Vast and Darth Sidious.
How wide would you say it is?
I would say it's pretty vast.
Vast.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Spanning possibly 3 decades. It's a long...
Or even more.
Going
back to 1921.
Oh, my. It's very vast. So Jane We cut to Jane with Angela recovering from her faint, and Jane is telling Angela to get those fuckers that did this to him.
Angela is such like a sensitive, weak person, right? Like she just faints right away as soon as she walks into Judd's house. That's totally in character.
She should really get that checked out. I don't know if she's eating enough vegetables. I think she needs more salad in her life.
More spinach, more romaine.
So then we reveal that Angela did in fact not pass out, that she did that on purpose just to be left alone so she could snoop.
Spy stuff.
Cue the badass soundtrack.
Yeah, and the Night Owl X-ray goggles.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Very. Are we calling them Night Owl goggles now that everybody has them? Are they just goggles at this point?
I mean, if we're going to call the ship Archie, like it's Night Owl stuff that the police are using. So why not?
You think that they could have just taken the guts of it and then just turned it into a regular looking ship instead of keeping the same Archie shape?
Well, what if that design happens
it's the
to
only
be
way
awesome?
It works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just happens to work really well. So they're like, oh, if it ain't broke,
It does have a flamethrower. That's pretty rad.
It's pretty much just rad. Like, I don't know why you would put a flamethrower on a flying ship like that. Just because it's cool.
Just because it's cool. Because owls. Because owls.
They breathe fire, right?
Oh, Jesus.
Did you notice there's an owl hooting at the end of the first episode when Judd dies? You hear an owl hooting? Yeah.
I did.
I mean, they're laying this owl stuff on pretty thick. I don't think it can just be a misdirect.
No, I have a suspicion we might be seeing some version of Night Owl at some point here. So, but Jane seems remarkably okay. Mm-hmm. Not super beat up about it.
Sort of like a person who had sacrificed her husband like a Comanche horse.
But she gets very stern and almost pushy, saying, get those fuckers that did this. Almost as if she's inciting some
because she
violence.
knows... Well, yeah, okay, that's true. But it also kind of makes sense that she would do that knowing that Angela's a cop, superhero person.
It would. But I do... I'm very suspicious of her. I feel like...
If she is...
Jane's motives are trying to instigate this war. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes along with your theory that Judd was kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back and starts this domino effect.
So, she made Judd a salad one night. He wasn't feeling it. To send a message, she had her boys kill one of his cops and toss salad or lettuce into the thing. She knows the people who working on an American Hero store. They're like, work a salad into that shit.
She's got friends in high places.
That she does.
Then we see, Angela snooping around. She finds the quote unquote skeleton in the closet. Got the white robes in there.
Is it actually a skeleton? It's more of a ghost.
It's more of a ghost.
Pretty sure it's his ghost costume.
I think it was just going to be a ghost for Halloween.
A sheriff ghost.
Is there any law against that? I don't think so.
No.
Jeez. Hang me. And then Angela is a little surprised at the ghost. I think the ghost scared her. She was spooked by the ghost. And she has to exit very quickly.
She takes it
She's
with her.
very taken aback. Mm-hmm. And she sneaks it out. And then we see the painting in Judd's home.
Zoom in way close on the painting and transition to our friend Jeremy Irons riding a white horse.
A white horse.
Now, he does not demonstrate any of these martial feats that we read about. He doesn't hang off the side of his horse. He does, however, use his horse to reach up and pick a tomato off of a tree.
I believe it's a tomato.
Maybe. We'll have to look at it more closely.
Tomato.
It could be an heirloom.
I do think that Ozymandias could pull off the martial feats of...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dude,
he's in peak physical condition.
Yeah, he's like an
mentally
Olympic-level gymnast or something like that in the book. He's a little older now, but he probably keeps in shape.
Yeah, you know how Lance Armstrong is like superhuman, and that's how he's able to... steroids.
Is that?
I think that's what Ozymandias. I think that's his secret. He's got Mr. Phillips pumping him full of some cocktail, and that's how he maintains the smartest man in the world.
He can probably get the best stuff too.
Oh boy, he's probably. I don't. Is he a trillionaire? You think Ozymandias is a trillionaire? I would think so.
I mean, he no longer runs those companies.
Not directly. I do think that he's still pulling the strings in some
You think?
fashion. Yeah, I do.
I don't know. So what? Something I kind of noticed about when he picks the tomato, he like tastes it. It's like first of all he it seems he expects the tomato to be there, like it's not a surprise to him that it's a tomato on a tree. And then he smells it, he takes a bite out of it, and then just like squishes it, like destroys it like needlessly.
But he seems to enjoy that too.
He does.
He gets a little satisfaction out of it.
So it's like I feel like that's definitely, there's a parallel to that somewhere in the show, right, Joe?
I don't know what you're referring to. You killing his own creation? No, I don't
He doesn't
think we
do that at any
No,
point.
that doesn't sound like the Ozzy I know. Yeah. So we get the amazing scene, the watchmaker's son. We get to see a part of that play. So it's the second anniversary.
Second anniversary, which is crazy because it doesn't feel like it's been all that long.
No, it doesn't feel like a year has passed
Like we
at
said,
all.
time is like melting around Ozymandias or something.
Yeah.
Because you got two candles on the cake, but we're only in rehearsal stages for the play. We're just about to have opening night, unless it took them a year to learn their lines and for the script to be finished or something.
Yeah, it is interesting. I feel like we're going to keep checking in on Ozzy almost on a yearly basis. We're probably going to see Anniversary 3 next episode, and we'll see how things are progressing.
That would continue the pattern.
It is indeed a pattern. I love the dialogue with Mr. Phillips. Did it ever occur to you that you are prop Mr. Phillips? Would you like it to occur to me? There are many things I would like to occur to you. Come on, dimwits.
Yeah, that's great.
It's great. So we get to see the play, and the play storyline seems vaguely familiar to me. I feel like I've seen this somewhere before.
Vaguely. It seems a lot
The Gila
more cheaply.
Flats.
It was no Zack Snyder production. That's for
No,
sure.
certainly not. Much fewer slow motion scenes.
But no, yeah, like he, has them all run through. He, has to remind Miss Crookshanks to make the tears
Real tears.
real.
Yeah.
And they go through this weird ham-handed production, a recreation of Dr. Manhattan's origin story. But it's bizarre. Like, I don't know. It's this weird like Victorian style
Right.
production. Like they have electric lights, but not much else in terms of electricity. And it's in the basement, or it's not actually in the basement, but it looks like a basement.
Yeah. And we've seen this story before. We got John Osterman basically becoming Dr. Manhattan is what we're depicting here. So this supports the theory that these clones, whatever they are, I suspect clones because Ozzy, or the man of the Lord of the, we're going to call him Ozzy.
Yeah.
He's got some history of
He's a
genetically
cloner.
tinkering. So I could see him cloning. But if this Mr. Phillips is indeed modeled after John Osterman / Dr. Manhattan, if we ever are to see Dr. Manhattan in the show, do you think that he's going to be portrayed by...
Oh, yeah. Probably.
So I think we've basically already seen the actor who's going to be
Either
portraying
that or
Dr. Manhattan.
he'll be portrayed by... Or actually, so if we rewind a little bit, like... So everybody's talking about Dr. Manhattan being in the show, like when he's going to show up or whatever. I think we see that little snippet of him on Mars and shit like that. I don't know. I feel like I'm not really convinced that we ever will see Dr. Manhattan in the show. Because I think about the comics, right?
Yep.
At the end of the comic, Dr. Manhattan leaves for another galaxy. Says he's going to go create life. He's just effing off.
He wants to go...
Ozymandias, however, is kind of obsessed with having that kind of power. Like, if Dr. Manhattan leaves, he'd be, Ozzy knows that that's possible. He wants to cook that up for himself. So he's trying to recreate the events that led up to it with clones of John Osterman and Janie Slater.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the person we see on Mars isn't Dr. Manhattan? Is what I'm essentially getting at. Like, what if that's actually Ozymandias trying to learn how to use the powers of Dr. Manhattan after he's gained them? And he's trying to build his castle on Mars, but it like collapses. Like he's not getting the hang of it. He's messing it up.
It's entirely possible. If he is So yeah, we don't really know Ozzy's motivations. My suspicion, and I think yours as well, is that he's trying to gain the powers of Dr. Manhattan through all of this. For whatever reason, he thinks that recreating the events that led to John getting his superpowers will possibly gain him superpowers, or he's going to have Mr. Phillips go through it and I guess hopefully
he'll have
control
Miss
him.
Crookshanks go through it. Maybe that way he has a Janie Slater clone with Manhattan powers who could then manipulate the real Dr. Manhattan.
It's possible.
It's another possibility.
Yeah. Because the big question is, what would make Dr. Manhattan come back to Earth and want anything to do with Earth? Because, last we saw, he wanted nothing to do with it. He wanted to go someplace with less complications. He's tired of these humans and their complicated lives and getting tangled up in there.
Tangled up in their lives.
I think that's a verbatim quote from the comics.
That's straight from, Zack Snyder's masterpiece.
Oh, man. You get that awesome play sequence resulting in...
There's a reference to the Gordian Knot.
The Gordian Knot.
Which is more evidence, like we need more, that he is Ozymandias.
Between the Gordian Knot and the horse's name, Bucephalus, both Alexander the Great references, is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as we know, Ozzy is very into Alexander the Great.
Now, apparently very into Dr. Manhattan.
Seriously.
It's like that speech that Dr. Manhattan gives when he descends on that elevator thing, like, a boundless omniscience and like swirling from the heart of a star and all this luminous being stuff.
Amazing.
It's a little a little gleeful, a little fanboy. You know?
Yeah. And after all of that, we get the body, take it out of the flaming corpse. He brings it down to the basement with the others. But before he does, he grabs the watch out of the hand. And you get that amazing line where he says it's only just begun. And he flicks the watch and it starts ticking. Now, it wasn't ticking prior to burning Mr. Phillips alive in the chamber, right?
Wasn't it? We don't know.
I don't think we ever saw it. So in episode 1, at the first anniversary,
it was ticking then.
It wasn't ticking. He was gifted a watch. It was fully assembled, but it didn't tick.
I thought it was working.
I don't think it ticked. We'll check the tapes.
We'll have to. We're going to review the tapes, ladies and gentlemen.
But I think that's significant because it doesn't really start ticking until you sacrifice a human life. So what I'm getting at is I think that the clock required ritualistic sacrifice.
This is a very different Watchmen than I suspected we were in.
But it is interesting that I don't believe it was ticking prior to that happening.
I thought it was, and that's why it was so exquisite. Like, he's looking at it, he reassembled it. I thought it was ticking.
It was not ticking.
But
I was watching for it. Okay. One of us is wrong. We'll find out.
We will.
Let us know in the comments, everybody.
Was the watch ticking in episode 1?
Tick or no tick? That's the question. It's interesting that my theory is that it required ritualistic sacrifice, and I think we can all agree on that. Anything else interesting about this?
So much. They're all clones of the same person. They all have different names, too. Like, we meet this one who's named Montrose.
Yeah.
Who gets promoted to the new Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, he didn't seem at all concerned that he might be next to die.
So how many times do you think he's done this play?
I mean, we saw him writing it for the first anniversary, and by anniversary 2, they're rehearsing, and they've been rehearsing for quite some time, it seemed.
True.
Because he says real tears this time.
But you think that he's burned...
And there's a lot of corpses in the basement.
You think he's burned Phillips's before?
Oh, for sure.
And so I think he might be, like, training Miss Crookshanks to sort of react to John Osterman being burned, like teaching her...
like
some
emotional
sort of emotion.
torture.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like.
And I did notice that inside the oven where they're getting burned, there's the number 15, like spray painted right under the pedestal.
I didn't see that.
That holds the watch.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this is like the 15th time he's burned one of his manservants.
I think that's probably a good guess. Number 15. Any other significance?
Interesting.
Great scene. I always love these Ozymandias scenes.
Mm-hmm. So are you a subscriber to the belief that Ozymandias is being imprisoned by Dr. Manhattan or by somebody else?
Certainly seems that way. He doesn't seem to... it seems like he's being held against his will, and he's planning an escape.
I don't really buy it.
You don't think so? What's he doing? He's just hanging out?
I think he's doing research. I think this is all voluntary.
Yeah.
I think, because, like, if you think in the comic book, he has, like, in Antarctica, he has, like, a biodome.
Yep.
That has, like, a
Karnak,
jungle. Yeah,
I believe.
In Karnak, yeah.
Speaking of Karnak, Miss True is now living in Karnak. Wow.
Oh, is she?
I don't know how that works. I thought that was true. Maybe she spends some time there, but she's also getting newspapers in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So.
True.
Anyway, back to your... Go ahead.
So, like, he has a biodome. He's created an environment, separate from... He's got a clone. It's one of the most failed clones of John Osterman turned into Pauly Shore.
He's got a basement full of just dead Pauly Shores.
Hey, bud.
Add him to the pile.
But, I think he's created this environment that's separate from everything else. So he's maybe the biodome was like a precursor to this new sort of temporal biodome, which is, he rides into it on a white horse every day or something. We don't know where from.
Right.
Or where to.
Right.
He might be leaving and coming back like a year later or something, or a year according to his servants while they're doing stuff. Who knows? But I get the feeling he's using this for research. Like he sealed himself off in a place where he can have very controlled circumstances and have these clones live very specific lives so that he can crack the code of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto it. It's very fascinating. He's definitely... I think his end goal is to gain superpowers, the same superpowers that Dr. Manhattan has.
Yeah.
And actually, what better reason for Dr. Manhattan to return than to have another super being threatening God knows what?
Manhattan off.
That'd be pretty great.
They
whip it out and
they could measure the dicks. I was just about to say that.
Oh, Jesus. So I guess that's good for the Ozymandias scene. I can't wait for more of that.
What
Those
if
are my
he
favorite
becomes
parts.
a Dr. Manhattan person, and the whole point it basically winds up being that he finds out that it sucks to have Manhattan's powers.
Do you think he already has them? How is he cloning all these people?
Technology.
We haven't need some sort of material to create.
Didn't in the preview scene we see a whole bunch of pigs rush into his castle?
We saw pigs. I don't know where exactly it took place. Maybe the castle.
Yeah, maybe he's like turning pigs into
Pigman?
like human blanks, like using them to, how like in Jurassic Park they use like frogs and whatnot,
right,
to as the basis for the dinosaur DNA. Maybe he's using pigs for the basis of the human DNA. And then growing a bunch of Ostermans and the Venture Brothers.
And then once he cooks them, do you think he eats them after they've been toasted in the
I don't know what else he's eating besides tree tomatoes.
Right. I think he's probably eating some pigman bacon.
No, I think he's studying them, though. I bet the basement is filled with, like, future tech.
Do you think we're going to see the basement ever?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Why would Damon show us the basement?
Oh, my. And then, so when we cut back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, we got Will Reeves. Angela comes back to the bait cave, and she sees that Will
So what's our scene transition? It's like goes from the pocket watch to the
ticking
egg timer.
To the egg timer.
So which is like, they're kind of set in reverse to each other. Like time is all wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different.
I thought that was cool.
Big time. And then he's got the timer going because he's making a hard-boiled egg. And we see that, we already kind of mentioned that he reaches into that boiling water and doesn't even flinch.
Right.
But yeah, as you mentioned, as soon as the egg timer goes off, the phone rings. And that's when Angela gets the phone call confirming that Will Reeves is in fact her grandfather and that she qualifies for redfordations. I guess they call it reparations. Do they call it redfordations?
I
think they call it reparations.
They don't use either word.
Neither, yeah.
In an official capacity. The only people who say redfordations do so like,
derogatory.
Yeah, it is a derogatory term.
So Will Reeves has got some kind of abilities here. The fact that he can reach into boiling water and not flinch.
Undo handcuffs.
And undo handcuffs.
Go across the street to buy eggs.
These all seem like Dr. Manhattan powers, if you ask me.
Only Dr. Manhattan can buy eggs from the grocery.
He can create his own eggs.
So, did you notice Angela's tattoo? She has a forearm tattoo when she's talking on the phone. It's Hebrew. She's got 3 Hebrew characters. So I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Probably nothing, though. Well, I have no sense looking that up.
Yeah.
But, it turns out it is the 3 Hebrew characters translate to one of the names of God, the 72 names of God, according to the Jewish Kabbalah.
72.
Yeah. And this one in particular translates to transforming hatred into unconditional love. So that's
fascinating.
Kind of,
she does have a lot of hatred, and she just discovered that she's got a grandfather,
grandpappy,
and they do have this sweet little moment where she's loading him into the car. And
so there is sort of a love-hate sort, because she killed, or the dude allegedly killed her friend, and
possibly more than just friend.
Possibly
I get the
more.
feeling that there's a lot going on there.
There's something going on.
We're gonna find out, I think.
Not necessarily anything untoward, but could be.
Yeah, we don't know.
But so there's a neat little juxtaposition. So is she supposed to hate Will Reeves, or is she supposed to love Will Reeves? I guess we'll find out.
So after she finds out Will's her grandfather, he says that he came back to meet her, and we almost have a tender moment, but then Angela's rage takes over and she decides she's going to arrest him. She's finally going to take him in.
So Will says he wants to show Angela where she came from. Like the words he used, I thought were kind of interesting because they harken back to Dr. Manhattan showing Lori where she comes from with regard to the comedian.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, good call.
Interesting, huh?
That is interesting.
So maybe Will Reeves is going to show her that her actual father happens to be possibly the comedian. I don't know.
It's possible. We have had that theory. And then as she's taking him outside, we've already heard him say that he's got friends in high places. You notice when he goes out there, he's looking up into the sky as she's wheeling him out there towards the car.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
The first thing he does is he looks up into the sky.
Okay.
So then she loads him in there, and we all know what happens. The big magnet comes down, and big what the fuck moment.
So I did notice one thing on my first viewing, because I only watched it once. You can see like really vaguely when she's looking up at the ship that dropped the magnet. There's like a propeller, and we know Archie doesn't have propellers, so like this is a different kind of ship. At first, I thought it was one of those moth dudes, like flying alongside the ship, just I don't know, something like that. But it turns out like it looks like a propeller spinning right by the light that dropped the magnet. So that's kind of cool.
It's very interesting. And that's the end of the episode. Then we get the Beastie Boys soundtrack, Eggman.
Yep.
What do we think the significance of Eggman is?
I mean, I don't know. The egg theme is everywhere around Angela in particular.
Yeah.
But it could also maybe it refers to if going back to my theory about Ozymandias, if he's in a bubble, right, a time bubble sort of thing, like the island in Lost, because we need to go back to Lost again.
You're right.
But yeah, that could be metaphorically an egg because he's incubating Dr. Manhattan and doing the research and all that stuff.
So is he the Eggman?
Eggs are also, related to genetics and heredity, and they're baby chickens. So we all come from eggs originally.
Do I?
Yes.
Even
Joe.
Me?
I feel like I shouldn't be the one to have this conversation.
My mother told me a stork dropped me down the chimney.
Oh my.
Oh God. Are you telling me it's a Cabbage Patch?
You're not one of those Cabbage Patch theorists, are you? A patcher.
Patcher? Oh my. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. So what'd you think of the episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did it move you?
I loved it. As always, it leaves you wanting more. I want more. Definitely
continuing that build. So very excited to see what the payoff is going to be. Also, I called when Angela, I forgot to mention, when she's in the museum, she says her phone number into the kiosk, and it doesn't start with 555. So I was like,
right. So I'll call that number.
I got to call this. So I called it so that you guys, ladies and gentlemen, don't have to. And it turns out it's just a disconnected number. It was, one of those, that kind of thing. The number you're trying to reach is no longer in service.
What does it mean, Jimmy?
maybe there's some audio hidden in there that if you turn it backwards and
I think you can play it backwards. It says,
it might reveal, who Dr. Manhattan really is.
I'll do that. So this episode, it starts with another flashback. Do we think that this is going to be a trend? Do you think next episode we're also getting another flashback?
I think that's pretty likely.
It's very likely, considering Damon Lindelof and the source material.
Mm-hmm.
Third time will be a charm.
I do like the placement, too, of the Ozymandias scenes. Like, they're sort of toward the end, but not right at the end. So we leave off with something big like Angela finding the White Klansman robes, and then we jump to sort of this non sequitur, really cool little Ozymandias story, and then back to right before the climax of the episode when Angela meets up with Will. I just feel like that's interesting. It's been kind of the trend in the 2 episodes so far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. What else? The painting. The painting that the episode is named after.
Mm-hmm.
How many horses did you count in there?
4, I believe.
So there were 4 men riding the horses. So would you say that there were 4 horsemen?
Oh, that's one's so obvious, and I didn't even pick it up.
The 4 horsemen.
Who didn't even recognize a similar Revelations quote on our last episode of the podcast.
This is true. I do think that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse might have been a little more obvious than the past one.
It's about one of the 4 horsemen.
Well, it's been a while since I've read Revelations, but I'll have to brush up on that. We're spoiling Revelations now.
If you haven't read the Bible, Jesus dies.
Oh my God.
He gets better, though.
Maybe that's not the last we've seen of him. So yeah, the 4 horsemen I thought was an interesting... I'm sure there's some significance to that. Also, the Comanche is the name of the horse that is supposedly the lone survivor of Little Bighorn.
Oh,
Did
really?
you read that? Yeah. So, as legend has it, I guess it was the sole survivor, because Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand, everybody
I knew that
dies.
The Comanche were also a group of Native Americans.
Yeah.
One of the first to get horses from Europe. But no, that's really another Little Bighorn reference.
And I believe that horse is stuffed and in a museum somewhere.
So it's about a last survivor. What you wouldn't happen to know what color the horse is, do you? Is it white?
I don't.
It'd be great if it was white.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to sort of like how Judd is one of the last survivors of the White Knight.
Mm.
Could be talking about this last survivor horse.
There's so many layers to this show.
And now that Judd's dead, though, Angela and some unnamed third party are the true last survivors. So I guess Angela's kind of like the Comanche in that.
It seems that way, right?
Of that particular analogy.
Sister Comanche.
There you go.
Another interesting fact is the blue penis. It was a body double. Sorry, ladies. That wasn't really Mr. Phillips's. If you guys were a fan of, I think he was a lead in Sleepy Hollow.
Does he show his penis in that movie?
I don't think so. I think he's the headless horseman, not the penisless horseman.
Okay.
I can't confirm. I never watched it, so listeners, if you guys watched it, maybe
why they used the stunt cock, or did he just not want to show his wiener, or maybe he's got a weird one?
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't think his is blue, so they wanted to have somebody who had a blue penis.
It's naturally blue?
There is a known birth defect where you're born blue. It's called the blue man syndrome.
Oh, is that what you have to be in that group?
I think so. That's why it's very,
It's like a support
selective group
through performance art?
Yeah, a lot of people think that they just paint themselves blue, but it's actually a serious birth defect, and they've been probably made fun of their entire lives. So we should be a little more sensitive, I think, to the blue man group.
I see.
I think that just about does it for this episode.
I think you just killed it.
So that's all, folks. Thanks for listening. If you liked it, be sure to like us and subscribe for future episodes.
Let us.
And you can find us online. We're at theonedrinkin.com. You can email us your crazy theories. I know I've got some crazy theories. I'm hoping you guys do too, and I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, let us know if you like our theories or analysis and all that.
theonedrinkin@gmail.com. Send us your questions, thoughts, and theories. The crazier, the better. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. The best thing you can do to support the show is to just leave us positive feedback. Yes, we're on YouTube now as well. Actually, if you guys really want a treat, go onto YouTube and find us. I've got a pretty sweet
Our YouTube channel is called
Watching Watchmen.
It is named after our show.
You can go to theonedrinkin.com and find all of our social links. But the video, this is an audio podcast. So to put it onto YouTube, it was either going to be I'd put a dancing kitty along with our audio or a visualizer.
Why didn't you go with the dancing kitty?
Well, hopefully our listeners would like what I came up with.
All right.
Let us know in the comments. Let us know if you want to listen to Dancing Kitty or what I came up with. I think it was pretty cool. That's all, folks.
Do.